The Indian judiciary is facing an unprecedented crisis of credibility. This after video shared by the Delhi police shows mountains of unaccounted cash purportedly being burnt at the residence of a sitting judge of the Delhi High Court, Justice Yashwant Varma. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we turn our focus to the curious case of Justice Yashwant Varma, a judge of the Delhi High Court. The Delhi police has overnight shared this video that you see on your screen that shows bags and bags of unaccounted cash, burning currency notes at the residence of Justice Yashwant Varma. And you can see the fire service personnel trying to clear out the room. In fact, the whole gutted room seems to be filled with mountains of cash. Now, how do we know about this video? Well, quite simply because the Supreme Court decided to make it public. In an unprecedented decision, the Supreme Court, close to midnight on Saturday, made public the internal inquiry report of Delhi High Court, an inquiry that was conducted by the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court. In that report, these videos and other detailed images that show, as I said, sacks and sacks of burning currency note at the house of Justice Yashwant Varma have been made public. Alongside Varma's own statement, also very unusual for a sitting judge of the High Court to do, has also been made public. In this statement, Varma claims a conspiracy. He says that the cash does not belong to him or his family members. And in fact, he makes the argument that this cash has been found at the outhouse of a residence and that there's a boundary wall that separates the outhouse from the rest of his residence, and this money is not his. But in his report, Chief Justice Upadhyay of the Delhi High Court says he is prima facie of the opinion that nobody else could have had access to this room other than the members of the judge's family, the judge himself, or those who work as staff in the house. And therefore, the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court has called for a deeper probe. The Supreme Court, while making this inquiry report public, which, as I said, is an unprecedented decision, and that's how all of us, the country, the world has seen this video, the Supreme Court announced a three-member panel of judges that will now decide what happens to Justice Varma next. And in the meantime, Justice Varma has been relieved for the time being of any active duty at the Delhi High Court. His earlier reported transfer to the Allahabad High Court has not taken place, and he will not be sitting on duty at the Delhi High Court either. But this matter is not going to end here. Parliament is going to call for action. There are going to be questions raised about the functioning of the collegium and the early handling by the collegium of this case and this complaint. The Supreme Court is obviously trying to assert transparency here by taking the very unusual measure of placing all of this in the public domain. To decode what might happen next, let me introduce two very distinguished guests on the program today. Justice Sanjib Banerjee is with us. I want to welcome him to the program. He has been the Chief Justice of both the Madras and the Meghalya High Court. And in fact, when he was transferred himself, there was some discussion on whether he had been penalized for being too upfront, too straightforward. So, his presence here reflects, in many ways, his own experience reflects some of the issues that ail the Indian judiciary. And also joining me is Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate, a well-known constitutional and constitutional lawyer. Sanjay, on this program yesterday, you were hopeful, in a way hopeful, that perhaps it wouldn't be as bad as it seems. Maybe your hopes have been belied. We'll get your comments in a moment. But first, for the benefit of our audience who did not watch this video at midnight, one of the most disturbing, perhaps, lines that is overheard in this video is you can hear somebody saying, Mahatma Gandhi mein aag lag gayi. Now, he's, of course, talking about the image of Gandhi on the currency notes. But in some ways, it captures as a metaphor too what is happening to the judiciary, the values that seem to have been set on fire. Let's take a look at this video with the sound up so we can hear this sentence, Mahatma Gandhi mein aag lag gaya.
करना से लाइट इसको यूज कराएंगे सबके देख सबके ये भी लिया। महात्मा गांधी में आग लग रही है भाई, वहां लिया। ये भी लिया बेटा।
Well, that is that shocking video made public by the Supreme Court. Justice Banerjee, I'll start with you. We've been discussing this earlier in the week as well. And at that time, you had certain concerns about how the Supreme Court had handled the communication around it. Now, the Supreme Court has chosen to put this entire in house inquiry report by the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court in the public domain. And that is how we have all seen this video of burning currency notes. We have also seen Justice Varma's own statement alleging a conspiracy. Not too many people are convinced of this because the fact is that a phone call went from the residence of the judge calling the fire service. If the fire hadn't taken place, this would have come to light. So it's hard to understand how this can be a conspiracy. Your first thoughts, Justice Banerjee?
Very commendable of the steps taken by the Supreme Court thus far, including the extent of transparency which has been shown. When I was last on your show, we had certain allegations. Now we have some facts. And prima facie, the Supreme Court must be satisfied as to the authenticity of the video footage for that having been put on the site and for a committee to have been constituted thereupon. Now we have to wait for this committee. They will hopefully act with some expedition and we'll get a report. But before that, let's not jump to conclusions. One. Two is that this must not be used as an exercise to completely undermine or demolish the collegium system. That is very important because that is one of the basis for the separation of powers and, of course, the independence of the judiciary. Yes, it should be improved, but this should not be used as an excuse to dismantle the system. Thirdly, there are certain facts which ought to come to light, and hopefully they will. I believe there was a statement made. I don't know about its authenticity by the fire department later saying that no cash may have been found. Now we clearly see a fireman over here and we see burning embers. So it implies that the fire services people discovered the cash, whereupon the police were also there and it went to the police commissioner. So how did the fire services authority, if they did issue a later statement saying that it was not found by them, how did that come about? Who ensured that such a statement came out? There are certain other names which are floating around in rumors. One must find out whether this was cash belonging to the judge or the judge was acting as a storekeeper for somebody else. And we must get to the bottom of this.
Let me ask you this. The statement attributed Justice Banerjee to the fire chief was later denied by the fire chief. So we were in this very confusing situation where there was a denial about his denial. When you look at Justice Varma's own defense, which is in the public domain because it's included in the report made public by the Supreme Court, he seems to have a contradictory response in my reading of it. On the one hand, he argues that the outhouse is not part of his house. There's a boundary wall separating it. It has nothing to do with his family. On the other hand, at a later point in his statement, he says that the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court had sent across a PPS, and the PPS, accompanied by his own PS, went to this room and found no evidence of any debris of sacks of cash and so on. So he is either saying that there could have been money, but it's not mine, or he is saying, oh, there was no sign of any money. There's confusion. He's alleging a conspiracy. Is there any merit in what he's claiming? Because what the political class is saying at this point, maybe cynically, is had this been a politician, a judge would have sent the politician prima facie to jail.
No, it won't be judicious to jump to conclusions at the moment. There is a defense which has been taken. There is some excuse which has been proffered, and we must wait for the committee to look into it. The committee will go into it. They will hopefully act with, as I say, due expedition, so that everything, the air is cleared, and all other aspects are covered by the inquiry. I don't think we should jump to any conclusions at the moment on the basis of either the report. It is very, very hopeful. I am very hopeful that since the Supreme Court has taken a view accepting the prima facie veracity of what is evident, we will get to the bottom of it. This is a very, very welcome move by the Supreme Court and the transparency that has been shown.
Right. Let me bring in Sanjay Hegde now. Sanjay, as I bring you in, we have questions from our audience. Two questions says Divyank. Why did the Supreme Court take 1 week to let the public know all of this? It took the media to let it out into the public. And how and where has the money vanished? Now, this is an interesting point. Has all of the money been destroyed? Has any money been retrieved? Has any money been recovered? Was it all burnt? Now, when you were talking to me yesterday before we had all of this information, you said this is an Agni Pariksha for Justice Varma. And you said Agni Parikshas are not always fair. Now that you have seen this video, do you revise your own response, your own instinct, which made you feel that, look, maybe a lot of this is rumor? Look at these images. They mount, remember when you and I were talking, you said for this to be the figure that is floating around 10 crores, 15 crores, it would have to be a room full of cash. Well, indeed, going by this video, it is a room full of cash. Your response, Sanjay Hegde.
Well, I am very glad that the Supreme Court has released everything. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. And it is possibly the kind of speculations that went on in public and went on through the journalistic channels, including your channel, that has prompted this response. Now, from what I can see on the video, it's a few things become clear to my mind. Maybe further investigation will bear it out. Firstly, it appears to me that it was the fire brigade there, and the fire brigade, seeing what was there, for their own protection, made that video. They did not take any. They did not know how to handle the situation further, or whatever. They put it out to the policemen. Then we can see the statement of events, which comes out from the documents attached, and it appears that the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court, who was away in Lucknow, was told on the evening of the 15th by the police commissioner. Now, Justice Varma comes back also on the evening of the 15th at a pre-scheduled time. He was away in Bhopal. He comes back by flight. There is no untoward hurry and all that. All that he's told is that there is a fire. That there is a fire, and he does not show any great response to it. Comes back at him. It's only thereafter, once the Delhi High Court Chief Justice calls him up and says, "Look, this appears to have happened, and I'm sending a PPS over." That's the PPS. Both PPSs go together, and according to Justice Varma's statement, nothing was found at that particular point of time. If you see the documents again, there is a section which says that on the morning of the 15th, when Justice Varma was away, when nobody knew what had happened or that this thing had happened in the evening, that place was cleared out. Now, what troubles my mind is, who is it who ordered the clearing out of the place? Who cleared out the place? And that which was cleared out, is there any salvageable debris? I do suspect that with so much money around, a certain portion would have remained unburnt. Has it been salvaged and deposited somewhere? Is there some record? Right now, we don't know. This is one set of questions that troubles my mind. The other set of questions is, how does money walk in like this amount of money? How does it walk in? And if you go by the facts as now established that it is an outhouse, it's not as if the judge is seen resorting to that outhouse now and then. So the question is, who put the money there? The judge categorically puts in his denial that neither me nor my family or anyone connected with me have anything to do with putting in money there. That's the position as it now
But
exists.
are you buying that prima facie? Justice Banerjee is very measured. You are a little more blunt. You see, here's
Uh,
the problem, Sanjay. Just
yeah,
1 second. When the judge says it's not my money, and he says at some length in his statement that there is a boundary wall separating where I live and this outhouse, he's disassociating from the fact that money was in that room. He's suggesting that the money could have been placed by someone else. The problem with that theory, the conspiracy theory that he's alleging, is then we'd have to say the fire was also set by somebody. I mean,
no,
honestly, if you go with theory that someone planted the money, which is what the judge is saying,
no, no, no,
then you
no,
have
no,
to go with the theory that
no,
somebody
no, no,
planted
no.
the fire. Because without the fire, there would have been no phone call and nobody coming in to see this money.
Yeah. Entirely. There are several. I am not
I mean, that's
putting
hell of
out
a
any.
conspiracy
I'm
theory.
not
That's
putting
hell
out
of a
any theory
conspiracy
in
theory.
advance. I'm not putting out any theory in advance. I'm only putting out the facts and the questions that trouble me. Similarly, Justice Banerjee may have questions that trouble him. The inquiry committee will have questions that trouble them. Now, according to the report, the fire department report, the fire appears to have been caused by a short circuit. Right? Who put in the money there? We do not know. There is money there. How much was there, or how much can we presume was burnt? Because obviously, even the salvaged currency may just you have to go by some process of extrapolation, and we have to assume that it was all currency. We do not know whether it is burnt paper, and currency sprinkled thereon, or what. We do not know as yet. As yet, we do not know all these things. So that's why even yesterday I was saying, let all facts come out. And no doubt, this is, even if you take the judge's version that somebody is framing him, that too requires an inquiry. Because if it is that easy to break through the insulation of a judge and put him in this position, then that too is very dangerous for the system. So either way, there are questions, and those questions need definitive answers.
Yeah. Justice Banerjee, if you were, God forbid, in the position that Justice Verma finds himself in today, what would you do? Look, we can't speak because we're not in the fraternity to the reputation, personal reputation of this particular judge. But imagine for a moment you were in his position. Sanjay Hegde was saying yesterday he can't speak for himself. Now his version is also available in the public domain in great detail. Would he's already been told not to come to work pending the inquiry of the Supreme Court? Would you resign? Would you fight? Parliament is going to go for him. Let's be very, very clear. Politicians across the political lines possibly are going to seek to bring in some. I won't be surprised if we're talking impeachment very soon. What do you see happening? What would you do if you were in his position?
I would realize that I have to explain the position. That is the first thing I would realize. I cannot merely say that there was a conspiracy theory and then escape my obligation to explain how cash may have been found in a room in my possession. As simple as that. Of course, a resignation at this moment would imply admission or acceptance. I wouldn't think anyone ought to do that, particularly if he believes that he is right.
Yeah, go
But
on. Yeah.
but I think it's the judge has to explain how this cash came to be found over there. The onus is on him to explain.
Given what he has said so far, do you think he's explained it? He's disassociated from it. He hasn't explained it.
Well, that's a preliminary thing, and where more evidence is called for, when a more extensive statement is called for by the committee, he will doubtless present his version in greater detail. We have to await that, and as I say, not jump to conclusions. But there are certain things in the air, which are the involvement of others, why this matter was under wraps for so long, what were the other players, so called players, doing in the interregnum. Those things must be cleared. This cannot be treated as a one off incident concerning one judge. It has to be seen as a systemic failure, and that has to be addressed, hopefully, by the Supreme Court.
Let me ask you before I go to Sanjay. The last time we were on, the rest of the panel lamented the fact that somebody like you had not come to the Supreme Court, that you were transferred from Madras to Meghalya. At the time, you had spoken quite bluntly about why you thought you had been treated the way you did. Your own case points to the fact that not all is well in the judiciary. When you see what's happened right now and you talk about the systemic failure, what do you think this says about the reputation and the credibility of India's judiciary?
You cannot paint all the judges in the same brush. My experience is that we have several excellent judges. Similarly, we have some others coming through a selection process that is not probably perfect, who enjoy the perks. And we have some black sheep also. And it's the duty of the judiciary itself to put its house in order, discover these black sheep, not hide them, expose them, and get rid of them.
Sanjay, when Justice Banerjee talks about other unanswered questions, a larger systemic failure, and there being other players, he doesn't elaborate on who those other players are. But people are asking commonsensical questions. This happened on Holi. We are now on the 23rd, right? It's taken a while for all of this to come out in this unvarnished sort of way, and we still don't know the full story. There are old cases in which the judge was named in a CBI case against a sugar mill that are being invoked. His judgments are now being re-examined, and the BJP and the Congress are both going to pay for his blood in Parliament. Are we looking at a possible impeachment?
Well, that seems to be on the cards because, you see, impeachment is a political process. And both parties can, without waiting for any recommendation from the collegium, they can simply sign up. And I suppose there will be many MPs who have already drafted some kind of motion. And there'll be a lot of people who will be signing up and putting it out on social media. So an impeachment is the process is likely. Whether it will go the full hog or not, that's an open question, because even if an impeachment motion is admitted, thereafter there will have to be an inquiry under the Judges Inquiry Act. And that
right. But who
report then
conducts,
goes
just
to
for my
Parliament.
benefit, who conducts that inquiry if an impeachment motion is admitted? Does this Supreme Court ordered 3-member panel remain valid, or does it become a different inquiry then?
It will be a different inquiry. It will be a
Right.
different inquiry. It will be a formal inquiry under the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968.
So, what does this do now to the authority of the collegium? Let's address the elephant in the room, right? There is all kinds of speculation in the national capital right now that the only time India's parliament has ever agreed on anything is on how judges should be appointed. And the Supreme Court had to set aside that unanimous law that was passed by parliament. Do you think that the fallout of this is going to be an attempt to get rid of or weaken the collegium system? And people might say, well, you know what? Serves you guys right.
Well, it is quite a possibility, because ultimately it was one constitutional amendment that was struck down. They might come back with another constitutional amendment, and they can also claim that the defects which were pointed out in the Supreme Court judgment in the NJSC have been taken care of. So
Yeah.
it may well be that willy-nilly you will have a relook at the judges' appointment process. The real thing that we want is the independence of the judiciary cannot be compromised. Appointments, the judges are, after all, lawyers who are on temporary loan to the bench. They and they are often the best judges about who should be on which side of the bar. There may be some very good lawyers who would make horrible judges, and there may be some not so known lawyers who make excellent judges. So at the stage of appointment, you should have control. But the question is, what happens after appointment? Many a
But
good
Sanjay,
judge,
before, yeah.
many a good judge, right from the beginning, then towards the end goes off color or goes rotten. That's where the problem lies.
So before I give Justice Banerjee the last word, he will not talk about himself. But when you look at his own case or Justice Muralidhar's case, right, there is also now a growing perception that if you're honest, you're straightforward, you say it like it is. At some point, the system doesn't necessarily reward you; it penalizes you, right? So what do you say about that?
Yes, but that's part of the job of being a judge. You have to call things as they are. In fact, the job description says that you must be willing to live like a monk and work like a horse. So it's almost like that. And I know of many judges who said that if we go to the Supreme Court, so be it. If we don't go to the Supreme Court, so be it. And some of them actually made it to the Supreme Court. Some of them did not make it. There were also judges who were too clever by half, who would pander to certain people and who possibly were less than scrupulous, but their reputation preceded them and they got caught off. Now, the Supreme Court is not the be all and end all of a lawyer's life. It is, of course, a very high court and everything, but as long as we lawyers remain straight, please take this also, that you can't have corrupt judges unless you have crooked lawyers.
Correct.
So we lawyers also need to introspect. It cannot be a moment of schadenfreude as to what has happened to Judge X or Judge Y.
Yeah. Can't have crooked judges unless you have crooked lawyers. Let me give you the last word, Justice Banerjee. You said this should not become a context to undermine the collegium. Yet, I think that could be one of the fallouts. As I ask you this question, there's a very interesting quote from the report that one of our audience members is citing. That the report says no currency was either found nor was any cash in any state seen present on the site, is what's written on page 17 of the report. The question again and again is, outside of the cash that was burned, where did the rest of the cash go? That is one of the many unanswered questions. Was it all burned? It doesn't seem to be from the visuals, but we don't know if we have all the visuals. My question to you is about the collegium. There has been a lot of debate over the functioning of the collegium over the last few years. Is the collegium standing up on appointments? Is the collegium asserting itself as it should on appointments? You yourself have expressed some skepticism about that. Now we are in a position where the collegium could be questioned, challenged, weakened, undermined. Your last thoughts on this case and the fact of what may happen. The consequences are big. Justice Varma is one judge. He's not the first or the last judge who will be mired in corruption. But the way this is playing out in public domain could lead to a cataclysmic change in the authority of the judge, of the courts themselves, and the functioning of the collegium. Your last thoughts on that?
Well, the collegium system is not perfect. It has to be improved. It has to be improved drastically. But that does not mean scrapping of the system. The primacy should always be with the Chief Justice of India in the matter of appointments, the process of consultation. But inputs have to be received from the executive, and that process of consultation cannot be one way. That the judiciary will have its own say or the executive will have its own say. we must strive to make a better system. I'm very grateful that Mr. Hegde has spoken of crooked judges and crooked lawyers. It's invariably the conduit is a lawyer when there is a crooked judge. And there must be some kind of introspection within the legal fraternity as to the quality that we are producing and as to the quantity that we are producing from out of the law colleges, which several of them operate out of probably cowsheds. You give a license to these people without an education, and everyone becomes a lawyer. Every person has one vote. There's a system of democracy which is there. Today, we do not have the governing bodies of any of the professional organizations being in a position to govern or to take disciplinary measures because they've been completely politicized. Be it the Bar Council of India or the Medical Council or the Chartered Accountants body, they've been politicized. All these bodies have sufficient authority to discipline lawyers, to take steps. Tell me when something of this kind happened the last time. Don't we have crooked people moving around, crooked professionals all over the place?
Absolutely.
This is the right opportunity to get to the bottom of all this, where we put fair and constructive bodies in place instead of politicizing every institution or every regulatory authority. And yes, the collegium system has to be improved. But I'm very happy with the transparency that has been shown, albeit late, but the
Yeah.
transparency that has been shown. And I'm confident that all the answers will be coming, whether it was Justice Varma, whether it was somebody else, who were the other players involved, all these answers have to be given, whether by the committee or otherwise.
All right, we leave it there. It is an existential moment, as it were, for the judiciary. There are enough people waiting in the wings, seeking to dismantle the system, as Justice Banerjee warned, and that would not necessarily be a healthy outcome for India's democracy. But on the other hand, if this is not a context to clean up and pull the skeletons out of locked cupboards, then I don't know what other context we'll ever get. Thanking both Sanjay Hegde and Justice Sanjib Banerjee, and to our audience. Have a great Sunday. We'll keep you posted on every twist and turn of this developing big story with ramifications for all wings of government. So do keep watching the Mojo Story. Thank you and see you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.